Hi, I'm Jalen Rose, and welcome to the Renaissance Man podcast, proudly presented by the New York Post, a show where we cover trends in fashion, entertainment, current events, and everything in between. My next guest is an icon, a curator, a documentarian of important moments in American pop culture history. Fab Five Freddy has befriended and influenced some of the most influential artists of our time, including but not limited to Madonna, Basquiat, Debbie Harry, and more. He has also taken us as viewers for a ride along through the rise of hip hop while hosting Yo MTV Raps and directing many classic music videos. It is my honor to welcome a legend to the show, Fab Five Freddy. Welcome to the Renaissance Man.
Oh man, thanks so much for having me as your guest today, Jalen. Longtime fan of your incredible game and also the incredible interviewing work you be doing on ESPN. I'll be watching you in the mornings, my
Thank you,
brother.
family. I appreciate the love. And as I mentioned, you're known not only for being an artist, but a prominent figure in American contemporary art. Where did you discover your love for art, and who were some of your biggest influences?
Yeah, well, my art making begins with me as a young teen doing. I was a vandal. I was a graffiti artist in the streets of New York, and that was something that started way back in the '70s. But at some point in the midst of doing that, I looked at pop artists and what Andy Warhol and Roy Lichtenstein. I'm like, wait a minute, these guys is doing similar stuff, inspired by the same stuff we were. So that led me to be like, wait, I want to be an artist now. I just don't want to be tagging my name up. And that began a journey for me that led me to become a visual artist, meet other people like Jean-Michel Basquiat that were trying to do the same thing back then in the 80s. But then I also was very interested in this new thing in the Bronx called hip hop, which was like an infant trying to find its way. And I thought we should all connect this stuff together. It would make all the cultures look bigger. That we got a visual art, we got a music, we got a form of dancing. Let's get it on.
Absolutely. And by the way, what you're saying is important to the evolution of hip hop because so many times people look at it as rapping into a microphone, and you just acknowledged it. It's graffiti, it's DJing, it's dancing, it's the music, it's how we speak. So for you, how important was it for you to make sure that those two worlds collided?
Well, I just thought it would be when I was a teenager trying to figure out a way in. I thought I was looking at a lot of what was going on in the punk rock and new wave scene, and they seemed like they was doing some wild, crazy stuff. But I thought some of that stuff was so wild and crazy. I thought, man, if I can get to talk to some of those people and explain how I think the energy is similar, although the music was different, the energy to make it happen by any means necessary. And then I began to meet people like Blondie, Chris Stein, and Debbie Harry, and they believed and listened, and they became the first real patrons of my work as well as Jean-Michel. And that kind of how we got eased in through music people that were open to these new ideas, and they embraced it all. And then I got involved in making what became hip hop's first film, Wild Style, which
Mm.
showed how these things all connected in the hood, in the Bronx. And that kind of laid a foundation that I've continued to build on and a platform for many other people as well.
Absolutely. And you've changed not only so many people's lives, but now that hip hop has become something for mainstream, a lot of people don't realize the origins of it. And I remember Blondie dropped the song about Flash, Grandmaster Flash,
Yeah, it
and
was
trying to
Rapture.
figure
Yeah.
out how did she get connected with him. And then me doing some research, it was like, wait a minute. Fab Five Freddy told them they need to take rap music uptown. So can you talk about that process?
Right. So what it was I did connect with them. They were the biggest like new wave punk rock group at that time. And her boyfriend, they were a couple. Chris Stein and Debbie Harry were the nucleus of the group. And I'd explain what was happening, how the energy was similar. They were listening to me. And so in the rap, when she was like, the first thing she says is Fab Five Freddy told me everybody's fly. DJ spinning, Flash is fast. These were things I would be telling her. Well, Grandmaster Flash is the fastest. We call ourselves Fly Guys and Fly Girls. She was like, oh, and then she put it all together in this goofy rap. And the funny story about when I first heard the record, I always thought they did this record as a goof in the studio just for me. I never thought they intended to release it. About a month after hearing it, I was at one of my first art shows in Europe. It was in Italy, and then I traveled to Paris for the first time. I'm in France, and I heard the record in a taxi cab. I said, wait, how does this cab driver get a copy of Blondie's record that was a song they made just for me? I then learned this single was dropped as a single, and then it went on to be a #1 song, and I still can't believe that all happened, believe it or not.
So songs like Rapper's Delight and the Sugar Hill Gang and The Message with Grandmaster Flash and Melly Mel were my introductions to hip-hop and rap music on wax. And now you've taken it uptown, and you now have a disco artist, one of the biggest artists in the world, Blondie, acknowledging hip-hop. So for you, what was it like to be the curator of that period of time? Because hip-hop now has clearly become something that is forever.
It's incredible. It's the most dominant music on the planet based on all the streaming services. You know, really, it was amazing at that time to be making these connections, but very few people knew who I was at that time. I was determined to play the background, trying to direct, make my visual art, trying to have my hands in some other things. But it all became a much bigger story later in the 80s when MTV asked me to host the first nationally broadcast hip-hop show, Yo MTV Raps. So then people were like, wait a minute, that's the name that Blondie mentioned on Rapture. Oh, because nobody knew what a Fab Five Freddy was unless you was really on the downtown scene. I was just this thing that she said. So that began to connect the dots. People were like, how did you know them? And I was like, that's how I was moving. I was finding allies and supporters in places where you wouldn't think. And the same thing for Jean-Michel Basquiat. That's how we got tight, was when we began to connect with those people that embraced us. Me and him became homies. We was both the same age out of Brooklyn. We both knew a lot about all these other painters. So we was both figuring out, like, this is a good lane where people are showing us some love and spending a few $100s on them first paintings.
And also, like, as a native Detroiter, we don't have a subway system. So it always fascinated me how New Yorkers in particular not only took the subway trains and tagged them, but they looked amazing. They looked amazing. So, like, for you, how did you get into doing graffiti? And just talk about how that art transcends in a lot of ways the art that we may see on people's walls.
Give me one quick second. I'm going to show you something.
Okay, cool. Love this. You're getting exclusive right now, baby. Renaissance Man.
Yes, and I'm home in Harlem. So now the guy that started graffiti as we know it in New York is a Greek kid. He had a job as a messenger. He lived not far from where I'm at in Harlem in another area further up called Washington Heights. His name was Taki 183. And in the early, I think late 60s, early 70s, when he went on jobs all over Manhattan as a messenger delivering packages, with a magic marker, he would tag his name, Taki 183. I recently was gifted an original by him.
Crazy.
This kid, like, This is like as if I met like a Michael Jackson type figure. He's so much of a pioneer. And this kid went around the city back then, late 60s, early 70s, put his name everywhere. And that inspired other kids. That was the street number, 183rd Street. Other guys might be Joe 182 from 182nd. And that's how it began. So in the beginning, it was just little tags, just writing your little name everywhere. Then the competition to have your name more and more. Okay, I want my name bigger. I want my name in 2 colors, 3 colors. I'm gonna figure out how to put a 3D drop shadow on my name. All of those were the development phases of graffiti into an art form, still on the streets. But it became this incredible thing. Like, I did more than you. I got more colors. No, I did mine bigger. No, I did the whole car. No, I did 4 or 5 cars. That's what drove graffiti to become this thing. It was like a competition to kind of be the NBA champs type of sort of thing like that.
What are some of the biggest threats you faced as a graffiti artist?
Well, the biggest threat was getting chased, getting caught. And then the sentence back in the days when graffiti was a big thing was you would get sentenced to washing walls. So you, on a weekend, you'd have to go to a station that had been tagged up, and they would give you these gloves and a solution, and you'd have to be washing walls. But thank God I never got caught, never got busted. Was able to. That was a part of being nice, is not getting caught. So that didn't happen. But that was all, we were all teenagers in the beginning, and it was just teenage mischief. But later on, it's like I led the charge for others that also wanted to figure out, how could I be looked at as an artist? How could I put this on an object, a canvas, or whatever, and like make a few dollars? And that was a process that we then had to learn how to adapt to the art world and just, being in business,
And then you took it from the subways to television, because as you mentioned, you were the first hip hop video VJ of
Yeah,
Yo MTV Raps.
that's right,
What a
baby.
classic show. And it was a precursor to shows like the Video Box and Rap City, and so many legendary groups got a chance to come on. Tribe Called Quest, Nas, Tupac, the list goes on and on. And it was also, for me, as I saw Anthony Bourdain have his show, it was like a travel show too for me, because you were always on the road. You were at video shoots,
Yeah.
parties, premieres. So what are some of your special memories from doing your MTV Raps?
Oh man, there's so many special memories. Particularly, I like to point out at the time when I got asked to come on and do that show, MTV didn't have shows that went out in the street and went to where the music was. Everything was in an MTV studio with a crazy background, and the VJs would be on for hours playing all them rock and roll videos. I was like, I don't want to be seen like that. I'd be more comfortable if a cat is on the corner in Harlem, or he's in his basement up in Mount Vernon, where I went to interview Pete Rock and CL Smooth, or I want to go to Compton. Let's be at the Welcome to Compton sign with NWA, and let's drive a truck so the audience can see what South Central LA looks like. Most people had never knew. So that was the inspiration. MTV said, let's film him wherever he wants to go. And then I got to travel, and so for me being a New York head that was around watching the beginnings of this, I now got to go to Compton and talk to Dre, Ice Cube, Eazy-E about what they're doing, what their hood is like. I got to go to Miami with Luke in the beginning when it was Luke Skywalker and the 2 Live Crew.
Yes.
I got to go there and go, because I'm into lyrics and flows. And what Luke and them was doing was not that. But when I saw the fun in the room and everybody singing along, I said, oh, I got it. This is just a good time. This is a different energy than what new, like up in New York that time. It was like a B-boy pose and
That's it.
yeah,
Mean mug, B-boy stance.
in the B-boy stance, baby. It was like you had to have that stance down. But then Luke and them showed us how to party in a different way. So those were special highlights for me, meeting new artists, seeing where they're coming from, getting an understanding of what their hood looks like. And that was special. Going to the Fifth Ward when the Ghetto Boys had Your Mom Playing Tricks on Me. And we got to show you, here's the Fifth Ward, like what they rapping about. And that was special for me. Like I'm learning and sharing it with the audience. So that was incredible. Great
And that was
moment.
definitely a game-changing thing for hip-hop itself, because you guys bringing it to MTV helped allow it to grow and make it mainstream. And so it reminds me that over the last few decades, there's been like a cultural shift towards social interaction.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that is there are people who now will live tweet an album release or throw virtual art galleries.
Yes.
What impact do you think that has on music scenes? And do you think it is still possible for new subcultures to develop like punk and hip hop did in the late 70s?
That's a great question, Jalen. And luckily for me, I've been a tech nerd, but on the cool side of nerds forever. I've been always up on the new tech, new gear since I was a kid. So I had a computer online or early on, even early mid 90s, early 90s on MTV Raps. I was on AOL and finding people that was into hip hop. I think it's an incredible new world we're living in. Web3 is the thing you need to understand, because by using crypto, we're going to be able to take more control, get more of the benefits of what we make creatively. You just have to lean in and learn a little bit about what a non-fungible token really is, an NFT, and how that works. One of the ways I'm sure you're aware is they've added more value to the idea of a trading card, which the one, I can't think of the name now, the company that's doing NBA trading cards, but you get a digital trading card with a highlight from your favorite ball player, and maybe some other cool stuff attached to that digital technology. When we figure that out, which is beginning to happen, there's a company now that Nas is invested in. I think it's called Royal, where you can invest in the royalties. You can buy a token of the artist's royalties, and if that song takes off, the value of this token goes up in value. This is a whole new thing now where you can participate in a unique way. So it's important that we get an understanding, understand how it works. And so the new movements and new artists, when they get more control, they'll be able to reap more of the benefits than the few fractions of a penny they get on the Spotify, etc. Now, it's hard to get some money in them spaces.
Absolutely. And now with labels wanting to give artists 360-degree deals and stuff like that, it gives them a chance to branch off. What do you how like as the business of music has changed,
Yeah.
you've seen like the art form go from a DJ being the dominant person, so to speak, in the group to allowing the MC to rhyme.
Yes.
Now record labels basically making it tangible for people to be in groups because you can't make the kind of money because they want to do 360 deals.
Yeah.
So what do you think about how the music industry has changed from its beginnings of Run DMC and LL in the 80s to the top artists we see nowadays?
You know, it has been a 100% 360 change in the way this all works right now. So it's an amazing time, actually. Vinyl's been around all of our lives. A record, flip it over, play it. That's over now. Those are antique relics. So are CDs and cassette tapes now. I'm like, what's a cassette? Somebody under 25 may not really
Right.
understand what a cassette, a CD, a DVD is. So that's important. But once again, like I said before, it's important to understand how these new things work. And if you get your hands around it, you then can really participate and reap the bulk of the benefits. Like similar to what Kanye West just did with that little digital player of his own device, where you now get that player. These things are going to increasingly happen. So it's a good time if you're up on whatever. That label model from before, that was the most corrupt deal going, the way the record companies would give you money to make a record, but you owed them for the rest of your life. They own the master. Artists have now understood. It's like if you get a loan to buy your house, 20 to 30 years, you pay off the mortgage, you should own it free and clear. Not in the record business. So that very um, um, inequitable business is crumbling because digital has coming with new ways to get your paper right, but you got to lean in to figure out how this stuff works, is what I see.
Well said. And I've always clearly been inspired by sports, but also by multimedia and people who look like me that I felt like were cool.
Right.
And when I was young, Don Cornelius gave me that. I
Wow.
was like,
Yes.
wait a minute, he well dressed, he interviewing people, he
Yeah.
never let them get it wrong at the board because he don't want to make us look bad.
I
And
know,
then
right?
you did the exact same thing with Yo MTV Raps.
Hmm.
And how you were always fly, well spoken, you were mature about your game, but you were hip and you weren't weak with it. So like for you, what has it been like as you evolved as being somebody that the culture understands as a curator and
Mm.
the embodiment of style and cool?
It's been a blessing, you know. It's really been a blessing, Jalen. I grew up. I like to talk about the really great, wise black men I grew up around. My dad and his friends were super hip, super cool. They also were super intelligent in terms of what was going on around the world. And I'm constantly amazed at how much of that really rubbed off on me and motivated me to make the kind of moves I make. Because I also heard their frustrations as black men from another era. A lot of things they couldn't do. They're just as smart as we both are, but they couldn't make those moves to control and own the means of producing their stuff. So that was a motivation in me that I'm gonna figure out a way to make my shit happen, and I'm gonna leave that door open to bring some of the homies in. Was always underlying what I was doing, and so that motivated. I hope I lost track of the question. I hope I answered it correctly,
Yeah,
bro.
you answered it, and I'll follow up on it by who are some of your favorite. Now, as you were doing your TV raps in the '80s to
Mhm.
now, I always see you with fly frames, great hat game, great gear game. So, who are some of your favorite designers then and now?
Wow. Okay, so the designer thing, it really wasn't so much I mean, coming up, I had a knack from being a really young kid to spotting that standout, cool urban style. I can remember telling my mom when I'm a little boy, I want those and I want that. And she was like, you shut up. You gonna wear these things that I get you. But I wanted what the cooler kids wore, the bigger kids. And as I grew up, I always had a knack and an instinct for that next thing. So I developed my style not influenced by designers, but by cool like individuals. My hat game probably came from jazz cats or just from watching classic movies where the hat was a mandatory accessory, just like you put shoes on your feet, you keep a skimmer. And I just said, well, I'm gonna make the hats my thing, but I'm gonna get a bunch of them and be able to freak them in different ways, different colors, different styles. That's just became a part of my thing, you know, the shades and some nice frames. But I was clearly influenced by cooler older heads, jazz cats. You know, Max Roach, legendary bebop jazz drummer. That was my godfather. Him and my dad grew up together. He was always just sharp, casual sharp, dress sharp. Just they had that shit dialed in, and it's just a thing that I wanted to continue. Now on the designer tip, particularly with hip hop, without question, it starts with Dapper Dan. And so just when Yo MTV Raps kicked in, which was the fall of '88, I had heard this name, but I was a downtown arty cat. And I remember it was Jam Master Jay. I said, Jay, I didn't want to play myself. I said, yo, everybody's talking about this guy, Dapper Dan. Is he some rapper? No, he's the guy that makes these outfits. He's in Harlem. So I soon would meet Dapper Dan. And soon after that, Yo MTV Rap started. So he would do some things for me. We became good friends. And so in terms of hip hop and design, Dapper Dan was the first guy to really cut, sew, rip off the Louis Vuitton, the Gucci labels, and make it ours.
Yes.
You know, that was
Yes,
my
absolutely. I remember I seen Paid in Full video. I was like, yo,
guy.
I need that.
I know, boy. Where
Like,
do I
who
get it?
made that?
Mm-hmm.
How ahead of his time was he with
That
that stuff?
yes, there's a great article you can find at the New Yorker. Wrote an amazing article. This is 7 or 8 years ago. That Dap explained how he went on a trip to Africa as when he was a teenager, and saw in Senegal that there's a lot of great men that know how to sew. And he pledged, man, one of these days I'm gonna bring these guys back to Harlem and have them work and sew for me. And he literally did that when he figured out how to get them Gucci, Louis Vuitton logos and make it his own. He had some brothers in the shop stitching that stuff together. They wasn't only doing your clothes, Dapper
Right.
Dan. He could do the interior of your car. You don't understand. So you roll up the
Easy.
interior of your BMW, got the Louis Gucci, you got the outfit on, you got the cap on. He would even do your sneakers. If you really saw this shit, it was like, wait a minute, this is above and beyond. And so that was Dapper Dan. That was like, man, listen, that was special back then.
That's the definition of fly. And here's a question I've been waiting to ask you since the early 90s.
Yes.
When I went to the University of Michigan with Ray Jackson, Jimmy King, Juwan Howard, and Chris Webber,
Ah,
the
shit.
media tried to give us a nickname, the Fab Five. And I did not want that name because of you.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
like, we can't beat by Fab Five Freddy's name. He a legend. And just so you know, we started calling ourselves 5 times. We tried to denounce being called the Fab Five for years
Wow.
until it just exploded. So I have to ask you, where did you get your name from? And what did you think when you heard us being called the Fab Five?
Well, I right away was telling people like, well, yeah, of course I was an inspiration because the way y'all played, you know, your swagger, y'all had that attitude at the time that was very hip hop. I was happy to take you know, some of the credit, whether it was fact or not. Plus, I knew y'all was cool. Me and you, I mean,
Yep.
you responded a couple of times. I tweeted some things. I'm like, oh my god. So I love the flavor of the whole group, that whole era. Many people were like, "Yo, is that you?" I was like, "Yeah, of course. What do you think?" So I was all cool with it. You feel me? Now, when them other dudes that was called the Fab Five, that was designing interiors with their little TV show, I was like, "No, I ain't got nothing to do with that. They do their thing. You know what I mean? It's all good, but I ain't got nothing to do with that." But
So
it's
where
all
did the
good.
name come from?
Okay,
Where
so
did
the name came
Fab
from,
Five
okay,
Freddy come from?
yeah. So I was a part of a group that was one of the greatest graffiti groups in New York that were called the Fabulous Five, Fab Five. And they were known for painting the entire side of the Lexington Avenue number 5 train. They would do the whole car. They had did dozens and dozens of whole cars. So when you heard Fab Five, people knew. So at the time when I stepped with one of the key members, a brother named Lee Quinones, the Fab Five kind of was easing down, but I stepped to him and was like, I had all these ideas about how we can take what this is from the streets into the art world. And I said, the Fab Five being the greatest group, had did some of the most incredible work. We should take it from the subways into the galleries. And the other members blessed me in. They had moved on. But this one cat, Lee Quinones, said, come on, let's go. And I laid out a little blueprint that later led to us getting our first exhibit at a prestigious gallery in Rome, Italy, B. And from there, it was on. We started having gallery shows. We was learning while doing it because we was mad young. We like 19, 20 at the time. It was crazy. But luckily things went good. And then, like I said, other people, we opened the door to people like Futura, Crash, Days. These were other graffiti artists, Lady Pink. A lot of them are featured in the movie Wild Style. They came in and got busy as artists too. A lot of them are still working to this day. Of course, my man Jean-Michel blew up to a level you can't even dream, where your work is walking out of an auction house for 110 million. It just don't even make sense. But that's the work that my man put in terms of wanting to be something that you will never forget, and making sure that the legacy and the black image and our story, John put a lot of that in his work. And so it's just been amazing to see things happen beyond expectations. It's been a special blessing.
And big shout to Brooklyn because as Jay-Z grew as an artist, his lyrics started to change. And
Mm,
when he started to talk about art and Basquiat and stuff like that, many people got familiar then.
true,
And
man.
as you acknowledged, like this is a day one relationship for you. So can you tell me one of your favorite Basquiat stories?
Wow, let me see. Okay, this is an interesting snapshot. First of all, I like to tell people, me and Jean joked around and laughed a lot. We was typical kid dudes, young dudes, chasing chicks, trying to get into clubs for free. Because in the beginning, when the downtown clubs, we didn't have any money, so we was like, "Yo, let us in." So we was having fun, escapades. But then when Jean started getting paid, started selling some work. One night we were hanging out at a club downtown in the Lower East Side, and there was a dude that a brother came in there, was panhandling. and he was trying to do some money, and he was doing something weird where he took a sneaker like he had it on his head. Like it wasn't too hard to balance it, but he was trying to get the white folks to give him some money. He's like, look, y'all, look. And me and Sean looked like, yo, this dude ain't doing nothing special. So people was giving him $1, a little 50 cent. Jean-Michel took a fresh $100 bill and gave that to him and just put it in his pocket. Now, the dude didn't realize at the time, but me and Jean had such a great laugh imagining what this brother's going to do later when he realizes what somebody put in his pocket.
Got $100.
$100 bill. So Jean we had great sensibility, laugh a lot, a really fun, cool dude that it all worked. It blew up. Sorry, he checked out at 27, which is like unbelievable, but he made a hell of a lot of work, and the work still tells a story, and he's one of the most important contemporary artists that ever did it. So
absolutely.
Special.
And lastly, and I appreciate you taking the time before I let you get out of here, I have to talk about your hard work in the cannabis industry.
Man,
New York City just legalized it.
Yes.
And 18 states have for recreational use. And you've done a lot of work to help African Americans and other minority groups have equity in the industry and expose the disparity in the justice system for black and brown people convicted of cannabis possession and distribution. What does cannabis equity look like to you, and how far away do you think America is from achieving it?
Well, Biden and Kamala ran on decriminalizing, legalizing, expunging records of the tens of thousands of disproportionately people of color that have been victimized and criminalized by this plant that has killed no one. This is the product that I developed. It's called B Noble. It's named after brother Bernard Noble from Louisiana that was given a 13-year sentence for 2 joints worth of cannabis. We literally put a 2-joint pre-roll on the market in 10 states right now, and I was blessed to partner with the biggest cannabis company in the business, Curaleaf, which the messaging is on the package about his situation. If you hit the QR code, it'll take you right to our website. So the mission is to raise awareness about cannabis injustice, a plant that has killed no one, that has medicinal value, that has been given a negative, just draconian nightmare story when it's a beneficial plant. So we are happy to be involved. We're in 10 states right now selling, many more states to come. We're coming to California with a whole new line of pre-rolls. So it's been a blessing to be able to message about the BS that too many of us have to deal with a plant that has great health benefits. And that's what's led this charge. Medical has kicked the doors open where they go, wait, we've had medical cannabis. Nobody's bugging out. We don't have a opioid problem as a result of cannabis use. We have people getting more help. And I'm learning now, once again, that all cannabis users have been medicating without us really understanding the effects. But as science and as we open this plant up and we can do more research, we'll learn more. There's 80 different cannabinoids in the cannabis plant. We've only been able to isolate about 4, in THC, CBD, and a couple of others. There's a lot more beneficial medicine in cannabis that hopefully when we get a more open legislation, we can then examine it better and more people can get the benefits. And in New York, we've got the most progressive cannabis legislation in the country, where those most victimized, people of color primarily, are going to get a 50% shot at the licenses.
Wow.
In New York. And people that fought to get this legislation passed, one of the young women was the main lobbyist. Cassandra Frederick was featured in my film Grass is Greener on Netflix, by the way. If you guys didn't see it, I made a film on the history of cannabis, its connection to music, but also I looked at the criminal justice nightmare. That's Grass is Greener on Netflix. And this B Noble product, which I'm super proud of, is now on sale in 10 states. And that's what I've been doing with this cannabis thing. And yeah.
And I've seen Grass is Greener.
Oh
And
wow.
it's incredible. And
Thank
by the
you.
way, I
Thank
love
you.
how not only you acknowledged how we were criminalized for marijuana, but how we as black people were criminalized in film and how we were depicted. So for you, like, how important for you is it to tell those stories as inspiration, but also to be a change agent?
Well, once again, where I come from, growing up around the intelligent men I was blessed to be around, they were handcuffed in terms of being able to tell their stories the way they wanted to. A lot of my motivating inspiration came from that. To get on Yo MTV Raps and like be fly and be cool, but I could put a sentence together and I could articulate and tell our stories, and I was blessed to be able to do that. And the same thing with cannabis. I knew right away, wait, I've got a clever way to tell this, because growing up in a jazz household, I knew that they had made records about cannabis. Louis Armstrong, Fats Waller, Cab Calloway made songs about cannabis in the 1920s and 30s. And it was bringing white folks to come and hear this music. And hey, pass me that joint over here. This is nice. The racists did not want to see that happen, and that motivated them to criminalize cannabis. It is only racism aimed at Mexican folks and black folks to criminalize cannabis in 1937. And then they just focused on creatives and cool people and musicians all the way up until now. But the walls are coming down. But in the southern states, they're criminalizing people using mandatory minimum sentences, like Bernard Noble was given a 13-year prison sentence for 2 joints worth of cannabis.
All
So the
I know
fact that that goes on was like, wait a minute. I can't believe that. I got to have a way to tell people. So also what we're doing with the brand is 10% of what we make in all these states, we're donating to organizations helping expunge records, organizations helping teach people how to learn to get a job in the cannabis business. So we're doing things like that with the money. So it's cause-based. 10% is going. So the more money we make, the more we'll have to give to orgs helping. In New York, by the way, I know time's running low, but Medgar Evers Community College, a college that I went to for about 2 semesters, then I left and got on my Fab Five Freddy biz. But they're going to be one of their first institution teaching courses on how to cultivate, on how to run a dispensary, so that you can go to school and learn how to get a decent job in what's going to be a multi-billion-dollar business right here in the state of New York alone. We
that is
easily could be the third biggest market, second or third biggest market to California and Colorado, just based on the population here. So,
well, like everything you've done since day one, it's been necessary. It's been with intellect, it's been with style, it's been with flavor.
thank you,
I
man.
want to thank you, my brother, for being a historian, for
Thanks,
being a
Susan.
curator of the culture, somebody that continues to make us proud. But before I let you get out of here, Fab Five
Yes,
Fred, I have a rapid fire segment called Gone in 60 Seconds. You ready to do this?
bring it on, baby.
Let's get it.
Let's get
Name
it.
one of your favorite painters or mixed media artists at the moment.
Oh my God, at the moment, I'm not that dialed in. I
Of
would,
all time. Name a couple of your
oh,
favorite then.
well, I can't leave out, I'm a big, Andy Warhol was a huge inspiration on me when I was a kid. So I like Andy Warhol, his paintings, but also how he was a multimedia artist. That inspired me to work in different mediums. Like, it's all good. You just don't have to paint. I can make film. I can write an article. I can publish. So Andy was good at that. But then I was an art nerd. So I was into like people from 15th and 16th century, like an artist, Italian painter by the name of Caravaggio, who actually was a bad boy. If you read about him, dudes that carried a sword. That wasn't a normal thing. That was some thug business. And
Yes.
he also invented creative lighting. He put lighting on the subjects in his paintings that didn't come from a window or from a fire. So he invented dramatic creative lighting. So that was an important thing
Crazy.
to learn about. So Caravaggio.
And as I mentioned, I never caught you without a fly brim, and you known for iconic hats. Who is your favorite hat maker?
Good question. There's a cool brother in Harlem. The hat store is called Flame Keepers Hat Club. Flame Keepers Hat Club. He got dope hats, fly colors. He comes with cool ass bands and accessories for the hat. Got an Instagram page and all that. That's my man right here in Harlem. Flame Keepers, baby.
Well, Flame Keepers, you got a new client in Jalen Rose. Not only I'm about to be following you on Instagram, but I'm about to come see you right when these NBA playoffs start because I know the Nets are going to be in them.
That's what's up, Jalen. You know what time it is. And holler at me when you come to town so that me and you can get together and continue these conversations.
Done and done.
Hit
a couple
me with
more
some more.
days. No, we definitely will.
For
Name
sure.
one tool all artists across all mediums must have.
One tool?
Yes, one tool all artists across all mediums must have.
You know, I would have to say it's this thing that we're using to communicate right now. It's the internet. Because every artist that I've ever been curious about, they got a website, web page. I can see the work. And also the interviews that they did on YouTube. Like, I can look at artists. These are things that were maybe only meant to be shown at a museum somewhere. They never was on TV. They're on YouTube. So there's so many artists that I've been curious about. I can see them, see them talk, and then see their work and look at other artists' work. Everybody's like, get online. Like almost even graffiti artists doing murals now will put their Instagram thing as how they sign the work. So when you really want to know, you go in and go to the Instagram, and then you see all the dudes' work. So it's a must-have tool, which we all have. Whether you do it on the iPhone or on the computer.
And we've come a long way from beepers for sure. Name one musician you think more people should know about. One musician you think more people should know about.
Sure, and this goes back to my jazz upbringing, if you will, just being around jazz. My favorite musician from a kid is a jazz pianist by the name of Thelonious Monk, who is just brilliant. The music at once sounds simple, there's some dissonance, it's cool, and it's very complex in a very simplified way. So it just hit me as a kid. I remained curious and infatuated with the music of Thelonious Monk.
And before I let you get out of here, one piece of advice you will give all creatives, a piece of advice you will give those that consider themselves creatives.
Wow. That advice is, and it's a must, to not just get it popping, but to continually keep it popping. You must be diligent. You must be obsessed. You must be driven. You must take no for an answer, and you must come back for more, and more, and keep getting at it. That's the only way it gets done.
Absolutely. The Renaissance Man, it's been an honor to interview an icon.
Thank you, Jalen.
Freddy. Thank you for joining the show, my brother.
Oh, man, it's been a pleasure, man. I've been waiting for this moment. My man, Jalen Rose on the Fab Five. We are together, baby.
No doubt. Appreciate the love.
Yes, sir, my dude. Thank you, man.